sparked, peaked or sparked, parked. As long as I'm enjoying what I'm knitting, that's kind of all I care about for this fall season. This is going to be my 2024 holiday dress. It's been on the queue. I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits. Hello there, I'm Nora, and you're watching, also known as Nora Knits. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode today. This is one of my seasonal planning episodes. I feel like I've been so behind on creating these videos, which is interesting because for this season in particular, I have had most of these plans on my mind since like January. So I'm definitely excited to share them with you. I will say that typically, if you've seen my seasonal planning videos before, I have really enjoyed in the past kind of reviewing the previous season and discussing the things that I had planned then and what worked and what didn't work. And there's something about going from summer into fall where the summer knits just feel so sort of not relative to fall knitting. And I'm just so excited about my fall knitting that I'm going to choose to do things a little bit differently this month. So I will not be discussing the summer plans that I had that had worked, that didn't work, but rather just talking about the things that are coming with me into fall on my needles, and then discussing all of the new cast-ons I have planned, a lot of which have some deadlines. So also maybe just getting a little bit into how I'm going to plan them, because I will be sort of doing that here with you today. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm surrounded by all of the yarn that I currently have that I'm hoping to work with in the next fall knitting season. I also have my iPad with me here, so if you see me glancing down, that's why. But I am just actively kind of trying to gather my thoughts while also sharing these things that I'm just really excited about getting onto the needles. So I think that that is all I wanted to say. And with that, we should just go ahead and dive on in. Now, let's go ahead and start with the projects that have already been on my needles for quite some time and will be joining me in the fall. Starting first with the sand cardigan, I will try to include some most recent B-roll I have from latest podcasts, but to pull out all of this yarn as well as all of the whips was going to be a little bit overwhelming today. So whatever you're seeing here might not be totally up to speed with where this project is at the moment, but just to give you an idea of what things are looking like, I have been knitting this cardigan by Maria Isaeva out of some Nora Madara yarn for quite a while now. And at the stage that it's currently at, it's waiting on the double knit button band to be finished, as well as to have pockets knit up for it, and then the cuffs need to be done, and that is all that remains. So I'd like to say that ideally it will be done by the end of fall, but I'm also not really holding myself to that because of the other deadlines that I have. This is a project that I knew would be super long term when I started it, probably not as long term as it wound up being, but I am learning to accept just the status of where it's at and the rate at which it's been moving along. So that's the first whip that's going to be joining us from, I think that one was actually started way back in spring, maybe even winter. So that's the active whip number one. Number two would be a summer knit that I had started in the summer, and that is my Cordelia skirt by Witchery Design. It's being knit out of Drops Belle, the colorways mint cream and black. It is a striped midi skirt, and one of the reasons I wanted to focus on getting it done at the end of this summer push is because I do think I'll be able to get some wear out of it in the fall. I think it would be really cute styled with like knee-high boots and a big oversized sweater on top. So at this moment in time, that skirt is actually waiting on a waistband, as well as once the waistband is done, I can finally determine if it's quite long enough to knit the ribbing that finishes off the hem. So that one's super close to being done. And I think after sitting down today, I should try and get it as close to being done as possible so that we can just kind of wipe that one off the needles. The next thing is a way less pressing WIP, and that is my Tulsa Tank by Rebecca Clow. I'm knitting this out of Drops Fabelle in the colorway red, and this really is a background WIP that I even wonder if I should keep mentioning. Maybe it'll become something that I just kind of bring up once it's done at this point because it's been on the needles for a little while. However, it's really reserved for my just handbag knitting, something to have when nothing else is in a good spot or when I'm just looking to get in a few rows while, waiting for work or something like that. So that's a super background, super low priority knit and will definitely take a back seat as the new cast-ons, particularly the ones with the deadlines, kind of show up. Now, those were the summer WIPs that have been coming into the fall. And then as I'm filming this fall knitting plans video a little bit later than I would have liked to, I do have an active fall WIP that was definitely on my fall knitting plans, and I just started a little bit early because I couldn't wait to get my hands on it, and that is my Beatrix cardigan by Gregoria Fibers. This is an all-over textured cardigan that I'm knitting out of a combination of Lamb's Pride worsted in the colorway Chocolate Souffle and Knit Picks Alpaca lace in the colorway Hamlet. Now, this cardigan is basically just everything that I dream of when it comes to fall knits. I really love knitting texture, and particularly in the cooler months. I think it's a way to keep my cooler weather wardrobe feeling stylish and yet still being very practical, because otherwise I tend to feel like I'm just drowning in a lot of sweatpants or just it's a lot of comfies, and while that's fun, I really do enjoy putting on something that makes me feel kind of more put together and like it was an active choice. And when there's texture involved, you could still be wearing a really cozy oversized sweater or a really comfy warm cardigan. And you get that cozy practical vibe, but that extra stylish element of the texture. Actually, today I chose to wear my first Corsaven cardigan by been a little while since I've talked about this one. It's Strika Kappa. I'll put the name on the screen here. I knit this up last year, and this is a go-to for me for fall for that reason exactly. It has this texture, it's really cozy, and I do like to wear this one as more of a blouse just because of the color and the drapiness of this yarn. This was some Yarn Bee, must be merino yarn that I had knit this in, and I really like that the texture elevates the outfit and the look, but it's really cozy and comfy. So it looks like I've tried really hard, but I haven't at all. I've just thrown on a really comfy sweater. So learning that about myself, this whole, I really love knitting texture, but I can't only knit texture because of the way that I have to focus on it all the time. And I just am not someone who can have multiple projects on the needles at once that are all very focused knitting heavy. And so learning that about myself and trying to figure out my fall planning and really just my seasonal planning in general, I've been trying to find ways to get the knits that I want at the end of the season while not stressing myself out too much and enjoying all of the process along the way. So I think that we're going to navigate that a little bit more as I tell you more about the other plans that I have. But this Beatrix cardigan is also the first thing that I have set a gentle deadline for. Definitely my other deadline knits have more concrete, firm deadlines, and This one is more just one that I've kind of put on myself, and I think it's very attainable. So I would love to have this cardigan done in time to wear to the New York Sheep and Wool Festival in Rhinebeck, New York, that I will be attending this year. And so, in a perfect world, this cardigan will be done by around October 17th, if I'm honest, just because of the way that I have other things going on. And so that means blocked done by October 17th. The day that you're seeing this video, I'm assuming is going to be Wednesday, October 2nd, maybe Thursday, October the 3rd. And so that's really giving me just 2 weeks to get this done. And I actually think that's very doable. This cardigan is being knit up on 5mm needles. I've been absolutely addicted to knitting it. And so it's flying by rather quickly. At the point of me filming this, I have about half of a sleeve left to go, and then the ribbing on the hem of this sweater, as well as the button placket. So I think over a 2-week time period, that giving me a little time to get this blocked, as long as I continue to focus on it the way that I have been, I can't imagine it will be a problem to get it done. But let's say that I would like to have this done, blocked, drying, at least on the drying mats for October 17th. And that is the first of my deadline knits. Now we can move into some of my plans to cast on, some of which I think I've spoken about, maybe not. At least I've hinted towards some of them. I'm going to go in, I think what I've written down is a chronological order of when they need to be done. So moving from some higher priority into more low priority, just kind of if I get to it knitting. And we can begin with the first test knit that I've done in a little bit. And that is a test knit for Emma's Knits, or Emma Mayer. And it is for her Artemisia sweater. This is a raglan style pullover, which features this gorgeous boucle yarn. And I loved the way that this was going to capture that texture element that I have been seeking in all of my fall knits. However, it will be a mindless knit because the texture is coming from the yarn and not from the design pattern itself. Something I really loved about this, and one of the reasons why I jumped on it as soon as I saw this test knit application pop up, was the way that the boucle texture, sort of sweatshirt vibe, was really balanced out by really clean finishes. And that's something that I have been learning about myself as I've been growing as a knitter, is the way that I really do appreciate when more simple, basic style knits, when they have details and finishes that seem extremely thoughtful and intentional, I will most definitely gravitate towards those. And it actually is something that will sell me on a simple knit or a more basic knit, because I don't tend to gravitate towards those in the first place. However, I do have a need for them in my wardrobe. So I really loved the look of this kind of oversized, sweatshirty typed sweater that has a textural element coming from the boucle and will look really great with jeans, and even I think with maxi skirts, denim skirts and things. I think would be really fun to style this, as I could wear it for work or for play throughout the fall, winter, even into the spring. And I've done a handful of test knits before, and I've really been trying to regulate myself when it comes to them, because I will put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that I'm getting those knits done by the time that the deadline the designer sets, needs them done. And so something that I've been trying to stay away from is doing test knits where there isn't an incentive when it comes to yarn being sponsored or something like that, only because if that is the case, then I can justify that timeline and that stress for myself as a knitter as well as a podcaster, because it would give me the opportunity to work with yarns that I wouldn't typically purchase. If you've been here before, you know that I am sort of a budget girl. I like to find a good deal. I like a bargain. So for me, there's a little bit of, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine when there is that yarn sponsored element. Now, for this particular test knit, the yarn was sponsored in the way that we, as the test knitters, were able to get 50% off of the suggested yarn. And that yarn is this, what is it called? The brand is Mohair by Kennard, and it is a boucle yarn for the majority of the sweater, with then the cuffs and hems and details are done with their 2-ply kin mohair held double. And I ordered my yarn, had a little bit of a struggle trying to figure out what color I wanted, and somehow managed to place the order, and I forgot to order the actual 2-ply kin mohair. So this yarn actually just came in, and it was the boucle in the box, and I was like, oh, where's the rest of it? And was about to reach out to customer service thinking that maybe it was sent separately, when I saw my order and realized that I was so excited to buy the yarn, I must have deleted the kin mohair from my order when I was deleting the other colors that I was thinking about getting. I messed up. So I actually still have to get the a yarn that I can use for the finishes on this, and I'll figure that out in the next couple days. But I wanted to show you the boucle because I'm really excited about it. Here we have the boucle yarn that I have chosen for my Artemisia sweater. That will never roll off the tongue for me. You may be able to guess why I chose this color, and that is because I think if I wear this with my sweet little baby OC, we will look like twins. And I really like that for us. So the colorway is called Walnut, and it's a really beautiful, rich, warm brown shade. I really, really love the color. It's a little bit darker than Miss OC, but it's a really stunning color, and it's one that I'm trying to incorporate a little bit more into my wardrobe. This is definitely a way more high-end yarn than I have probably, I won't say ever because I've bought the Nora before, but it's up there with my Nora yarn. And even with the 50% off with shipping and everything, this did come out to a pretty penny for all the yarn that I need. But again, I really think it's worth it for this basic style knit to incorporate a more luxury fiber. I think I'll get a lot of wear out of this. And when the yarn is literally the star of the show in a garment, that's when I think it's worth it to pay that little bit more, because I could not find this exact color and fiber and just gorgeousness in a better price point. Now, if you know of a better price point where you could find these warm tones of boucle, then I would love to know. But from what I've seen when it comes to boucle yarns, it appears that most of them come in like a cooler, more natural tone, and it's this warmth that I was really, really seeking. And so the stars kind of aligned for this whole test knit, and I was very fortunate to be selected to participate in the test knit. I have knit one of Emma's patterns before. That was my clematis vest, and I absolutely adore that, and I was very eager to try another from her. So this is for that test knit, the Artemisia sweater, and there has not yet been a firm date set for the deadline for this test knit, but I'm guessing from the original sort of window that was stated, this is one that will have to be done by around November 13th. So that is the next deadline that I have on my calendar to get this done by, and I have yet to start it. However, I think that for a raglan style sweater, this will become my sort of mindless in the round knitting once I get past all the increases and everything. And of course, it's not going to be totally mindless because it is a test knit and I will be there to provide feedback to the designer. But as far as the knitting process of it, it will kind of be. And so I can definitely see myself getting this done pretty quickly, and I'm not worried about the deadline on this guy at all. So that is probably going to be the next cast on for me. The Artemisia sweater by Emma Mare. This pattern is not out yet, but I'll definitely keep you posted about all of that information when we have it. The next pattern that I have been eyeing for a little bit, I've been eyeing because it's going to be a gift knit, and along with it comes another deadline. So this project is called The Poet's Cardigan by Allison Schmidt. And this is not technically a pattern as far as I am aware. Allison says in her Ravelry project page that this is a free Ravelry download and it's a self-drafted pattern that she is just releasing her charts and notes for. So this will be my first time knitting anything like this. However, this is another Taylor Swift inspired cardigan based on her Tortured Poets department sweater, as far as I know. I'm not actually a Swiftie, but everyone in my family is. So this is my second time knitting a Taylor Swift inspired cardigan this year even. I had knit the Folklore cardigan, the Lion Brand version, for my cousin earlier this year, and now my sister will be going to the Taylor Swift concert in November, and so I have promised her for a very, very late birthday gift that this is her cardigan that I'll be knitting for her this year. And if you have been here since I was doing that Folklore cardigan for my cousin, you might remember that I really did put a lot of additional thought and consideration into that project. I basically reworked the pattern for a smaller size than what was included in the pattern. And so I do feel like moving into this design, I have some confidence in figuring out exactly how to knit this, especially because my sister and I are very close to the same size. So I'll be able to try this on for her as I go, which is something I couldn't do for Emma. And so there's a little bit more gambling for that Folklore cardigan. But I presented my sister with both options for her Taylor Swift inspired cardigan, and she chose this one. And I think it's probably because it does lend itself to a little bit more of an everyday kind of work wearable cardigan, whereas the Folklore cardigan is very intricate looking, and that's just not really my sister's style. So I feel like this one has a little bit more of a relaxed and classic vibe to it for her. So it features these really big diamond cables, which the Folklore cardigan did as well. And it has some other little cabled elements. I almost feel like it's like a big stretched out version of the original Folklore cardigan. And hopefully between Allison's notes and the information that I've learned from that Folklore cardigan, I'll be able to figure this one out. Now, my aunt had actually purchased a kit for me to knit up that Folklore cardigan for my cousin, and in anticipation to knit the same one for my sister, she had also purchased a kit for that. So the yarn I'm about to show you that I'll be knitting this out of was gifted by my lovely aunt. Thank you so much. And it actually was purchased to be knit into the Folklore cardigan, but the color was different. We thought maybe this would be a little bit more wearable, and it turns out that my sister likes this combination of this color for the Poet's cardigan more than the traditional Folklore cardigan. So here I have a big pack of the Lion Brand Wool Ease yarn in a gray colorway. This is how it came packaged for the kit, and it actually still has the Folklore cardigan pattern inside of it since that is what it was purchased for. I'm assuming I'm going to be able to make this work for the Poet's cardigan here, and that I'll be able to figure out the gauge and everything. This is definitely going to be a little bit more of a project, and so it might come as a little bit more alarming when I tell you the actual deadline that I have for this knit. This cardigan needs to be wrapped up, blocked, the whole bit. Honestly, it should already be on its way in my sister's hands on November 20th, which gives us about a month and a half to get this one done. Now, my thought process is once I finish my Beatrix cardigan, this is probably going to be the next thing I cast on as my mindful knitting. hopefully it works out that the Cordelia skirt kind of comes off the needles, introduce the Artemisia sweater, Beatrix cardigan comes off the needles, introduce the Poets cardigan, and maybe this will all really just fall into place. We'll see. Definitely wish me luck. But I'm eager to see how this all works up, and hopefully I'm able to even figure this out. Obviously, if not, it's not the end of the world, but I'd like to give this to my sister so that she could wear it for her Taylor Swift concert weekend. Next up for my plans is another self-imposed deadline, but one that I've been looking forward to for months. And that is the Grayling cardigan by Magdalena Parker of Knitonomy. And if you've been here for any length of time, you've probably heard me rave about this designer before. She is one of the designers that I saw her designs before I started knitting, and it definitely encouraged me to start knitting, which makes this whole experience even that much cooler. Since starting this podcast, I've been able to connect with Magdalena a few times, and I had been asking her about ways that I could modify this exact design. And in the conversation, she decided to gift me the pattern. So thank you so much, Magdalena, for gifting this pattern. It's been on the queue. So I'm very excited to finally be getting to it. And what makes this that much more special is this is going to be my 2024 holiday dress. I think that from now on, I'm just going to pretend that I am Holiday Barbie and I would like to have a handmade dress every year for the holidays. Now, last year I had knit up a Christmas dress for myself. That was the Augustins number 25 by Anne-Sophie Velling. And I made that a super Christmassy dress. I wore it for Christmas and really enjoyed that, but felt like the amount of time that I put into it, I would like something that I could get a little bit more wear out of. Now, we tend to split holidays between my boyfriend's family and my own, so I have a unique opportunity to wear one holiday dress to both Thanksgiving and Christmas and have different eyes on it both times. So, another thing I would really like to get done before Thanksgiving is this sweater, but as a dress. Magdalena has a knack for designing these sweaters, and then she herself has often turned standard sweaters into midi long dresses. And when I saw this one, I just pictured it and I knew I wanted it in my new favorite color, which is this very chocolatey brown color. Now, after speaking with her a little bit, she had mentioned that these cables, they are very prominent, very chunky, wide cables. And so it could be fun to play around a little bit with the fiber since you really can't go wrong. It would be almost impossible for these cables not to stand out. And so I decided to go out on a little bit of a limb and try a new to me fiber. This is from Knit Picks. It is their Woolpaca, and it's a blown yarn, which means that it's super, super lightweight. It's a chainette tube in which a bunch of fibers are blown. And literally, when I got this giant box of yarn, it weighed next to nothing. And that's something that was really important to me since I have knit a few different long, cabled, textured, non-textured dress knits in the past. Finding something that was going to be lightweight and still hold up was the goal. Now, I will say, the most common complaints about this Woolpaca yarn is that it doesn't hold up particularly well. Here I have one of the balls. Was I calling this Woolpaca? This is Wonderfluff. Scratch everything I said about Woolpaca. It's Wonderfluff by Knit Picks. My apologies. I even wrote down Woolpaca. It's Wonderfluff. So a lot of people did say that this yarn tends to pill. It tends to show signs of wear kind of on the quicker side. And the thing is, while I plan to have a dress that is going to be more wearable than my Christmas dress last year. It's still not going to see everyday wear. Honestly, I'd be surprised if I wear this more than a couple of days a month throughout the cooler weather seasons. I would like something that I could get some more casual wear out of in addition to it being this holiday dress, but we'll see kind of how it fares. I certainly want to wear it twice this year for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So this is the yarn that I chose. I believe this color is called Espresso, and I have already knit up a swatch, a very small swatch, I should say, but with which I did get gauge, and I am very excited to see these cables knit up. Now, with this being a very fuzzy, very hairy yarn, the cable in this one swatch is probably next to impossible to see. And I loved the idea of that then being translated into a whole dress. When you multiply this one cable by 20, going around my body, going from my neck to my ankles, that is going to be an unmistakably cabled dress, but it'll be subtle in the color and the texture that it's all going to kind of wash together a little bit in a really great way, I think, I hope. So as of right now, I know for sure that I will be knitting this sweater into a dress that's going to hit somewhere around my ankles. I still want to keep, I think, the wide ribbing that she has in the original design at the ends of the cuffs, at the hem as well. The only thing that I'm still debating what I'm planning to do with is the neckline. I can't decide. In the original design, it looks like she has a folded over neckline, and I like the idea of that. But I could also see maybe knitting a little bit more of a turtleneck or something. That could be fun. So I'm guessing that's a picked up collar, and therefore I'll have a little more time to think about it. But yes, this grayling sweater is one that I am very excited to start knitting up. I think it's interesting that there aren't a ton of projects on the Ravelry page as of right now, but you can see in the projects that are there just how prominent those cables are, which brings me back to, again, the point of this is going to be really subtle and a very kind of just like washed on texture. And I love the idea of that. I could see myself wearing this for the holidays with a pair of heeled boots underneath. I could also see wearing this with a pair of nude pumps or something to kind of just class it up a little bit more even. Already I have Wonder Fluff in my lip gloss. But I could definitely also see wearing this with just white sneakers, very casual, running errands, and just being cozy and comfy along the way. I'm so excited about this. So yes, Thanksgiving is the goal, and therefore I would love for this to be done by November 27th. Those are all of the plans that I have with some crazy deadlines. And they were also the most set in stone plans that I had. So I'm glad that they do all fall within that November time period. And realistically, the only one that actually has to get done is the Artemisia sweater for the test knit. And everything else is a very self-imposed deadline. If my sister doesn't get her cardigan by her Taylor Swift concert, she'll get it for her birthday next year, and that's life. If I don't finish the holiday dress for Thanksgiving, I'll finish it for Christmas and I'll wear it then, and I'll wear it for Thanksgiving next year. And that's fine. If the Beatrix cardigan isn't done for Rhinebeck, it's gonna get done, and maybe I'll wear that for Thanksgiving. So nothing's really that set in stone, but I do love a goal to meet a deadline. So glad to get those out of the way. Now, with those also being the more concrete plans, the rest of the plans kind of came from a very long list inside my mental queue that I kind of plucked things that I thought would be the most appropriate to have done for winter, for, the cooler months, things that would work out as far as maybe being more mindless, things that would supplement the very concrete plans that I had, hopefully pretty well. First things first, this is a project that I have discussed on the channel before, actually just in the most recent podcast, and that is the Granada sweater by Claudia Quintanilla from Unit Toronto. The yarn for this project was sent to me from Claudia and the team at Unit Toronto. It is the Ito, my gosh, I keep forgetting the exact name of this. It is a silk yarn and then the silk mohair sensai yarn to go with it, also from Icho. And this is a sweater which features a stockinette body and crocheted sleeves, which I definitely think is feasible to kind of tuck in with the rest of these ambitious plans as something that would be able to get done a little bit quicker, a little bit easier for me personally. Having been a crocheter before I was a knitter, I'm hoping that the sleeves will be a welcomed sort of just change up for me. And it's another thing that I would love to have done for this holiday season because I think that this would look really great just styled with jeans or trousers, or dress it up with a midi skirt and boots to wear for some more just kind of fancy but still casual holiday occasions. So that's the Granada sweater on my list of things to get done for the fall. Next up is a cardigan pattern that I have had my eye on since it came out. And this is one that when a local yarn shop had been closing, I went in with the intention to buy yarn for this cardigan, and that is the Paul cardigan by akanoraknits. I've seen this cardigan gaining more traction lately in the world of cardigans in the podcasting world. I've definitely seen more and more people talking about this one. Most recently, I know String Things by Mel has been raving about her two Paul cardigans and just making me all that more eager to cast one on. In the sample photos, Morika Knit here has a gray version as well as a red version. And I knew as soon as I saw the red version that I had to have it. And so when I saw this Barocco Ultra Wool at that yarn shop, I definitely took advantage of the closing sales and purchased the sweater's quantity in order to knit this cardigan. Now, part of why this made it into my fall knitting plans is because it's one of the only non-textured garments that I've had in my mental queue. And with all the other textured things I had planned, I figured this would be a nice relief for me. Of course, it won't be the most mindless thing as it is a cardigan and it features this really interesting construction that you could see from the back that I just was so intrigued by from the moment I saw it the first time. I thought that this would also be fun to knit up towards the end of fall as a December cast on to, have something going for the holidays. I don't necessarily need it done for Christmas or anything, but I think that it would be fun to work on during the holiday season. So I really love the details of this one with the wide ribbing again at the bottom. I love that feature. Now, her version, I believe, is knit with a fingering weight held with mohair, and I'll be knitting mine out of this 100% superwash wool. I also think it's interesting that her version is this very orangey red from what I could see on my screen, and mine is definitely going to be a little bit more of a blue undertoned red, so it won't be quite as bright, but I have found that red garments, accessories especially, have been a really easy thing to incorporate into my mostly neutral leaning wardrobe. And so a red cardigan seemed like exactly what I would need to, I don't know, just fill in some of the gaps of what I have and don't have. I also have picked up some buttons that I think will work for this, but I'm still open to finding just the right one. If you have a recommendation for a button, she uses something that's sort of a tortoise shell vibe, and that's kind of what I'm thinking too, but I'm open to suggestions. So yeah, this one I'm definitely thinking will get cast on kind of after the November chaos, and hopefully will be one of those first holiday knits that I could just cozy up with and enjoy the red with when all my Christmas decor is up. And indulge in the holiday season a little bit more. I also want to say thank you to Violet, who did purchase the Paul cardigan pattern for me. I so appreciate it, and I'm so excited to knit it. Next up in my fall knitting plans is something that I have been talking about again for like a year, and that is the Miles shirt jacket by Ozetta Haley Schmedley. I'm sure she hates when people say that. Haley Smedley. This is a shacket that I've been fascinated by for the longest time, and I just come back to again and again and again. I am definitely in need of more casual knitwear garments in my wardrobe, and I think that this one will foot the bill exactly. It's one of the reasons why I was so excited to see it pop up in my Ravelry library. Thank you so much to Tegan, who gifted me this pattern. Now, I am also looking forward to shopping for the yarn for this one, which I'm hoping to do at Rhinebeck this year. Having gone to Rhinebeck last year and having a mental shopping list of things just to look out for that were more notions heavy, I did learn that yarn is the thing to get at Rhinebeck, and particularly these natural fibers I would love to find there. So I will be keeping my eye out for an unspun yarn at Rhinebeck this year, and we'll see. I won't be forcing myself to get anything if I don't find exactly what I'm looking for, but I do think that that would be a fun thing to hunt for at Rhinebeck. Now, this is a oversized jacket knit. It is knit out of some unspun yarn. I love the pockets on the outside. I've been toying back and forth ever since I first saw this with whether or not I love the collar on it. It's still up in the air whether or not I will modify this pattern to have a folding over collar or if I will keep it as is, shorten it. I'm not really sure yet. I think it's one of those things I just have to see as I'm making it. But I've always really appreciated the detail on the side where the hem is curved and kind of comes up when it comes to these big oversized garments, especially those that I'm planning to wear as a jacket. To have that subtle curve, I think is really sort of understated just how much that impacts the like femininity element of this otherwise very oversized unisex type pattern. Now, like I said, I don't have the yarn for this one yet, but I am picturing it in either an olive green sort of color, something very earthy, but definitely that olivey green I think could work for this really well in my wardrobe. Or it might be another one that winds up being these sort of mid-tone warm browns. Even bordering on mustard, I think could work really well for me. Colors I'm probably not going to go for, unlike what she has here, is a gray. I think that I could better integrate something that is a warmer tone into my wardrobe and probably something a little bit on the darker side, but just a less saturated kind of color. I also really love the detail on the back of the shoulder where you see that kind of stripe of stockinette coming down. I just think that this looks very easy, effortless, and would be the perfect thing to have by the door to chuck on the chillier days from fall through the spring. And that's why the color, I don't know, if I go with a brown, I think it will lean super, super fall, and that's great. But if I find an olive green that I can really get along with, I think that that might be better just for sort of like year-round wear. So this project might not even be started in the fall, but I know I'm planning to purchase the yarn in the fall unless I don't find something I love. And that does tend to be a problem for me. So we will see. Of course, as we keep going, these plans are getting a little bit more wishy-washy, but I will say that everything I'm talking about is something that I fully plan to knit over the next year at some point. So if I don't get to it in the fall, then I'll push it for later in the year next year. But this is a brand new pattern that did just recently come out from a designer who I've been extremely gravitated towards her designs, especially as of late. Every time she puts up new designs, I definitely add it to my favorites on Ravelry. I just have yet to actually make one. But this was one that, again, I thought could kind of supplement nicely with the more intricate textured patterns I am planning to knit. And that is the Ruth Pullover by Irene Lynn. Now, this is a sweater that definitely has more of a blousiness to it. Definitely, I would plan to be wearing this a little bit more as a shirt. And as I'm sitting here, I'm realizing that I didn't bring down the yarn that I plan to knit this in, so a picture will have to suffice. But it is the Patagonia Organic Merino, and I believe that the color is Dusty Rose or something along those lines. But it is this pinky color, and I love this pink color, but I fear knitting it's going to turn into a little bit too much of a frilly, girly garment that I won't feel like goes perfectly with my wardrobe, with my whole aesthetic. When it comes to my style, I really do like to try and pair some contrasting elements. So if it's going to be a more pink girly color, I like to infuse a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a masculinity. And while this design may not scream that to you, where I'm getting that from is actually in the texture that it has of this ribbing. I think that the ribbing is a really sturdy looking and linear pattern that can offset the like femininity and girliness of the pink and the blouse of this in a way that really does work for me. Now, they have different options when it comes to the way that you choose your sizing for this, for the length and for the cut. I do really love the way that the back of this green one looks, which I believe is the longer version. But I also like the way that the more caramel toned one is hitting at that waist. And I think that's probably what I would go for. But it's still up for debate. I'm feeling extremely grateful because this is another pattern that was gifted to me by a viewer. The name was not included. And so you know who you are. Thank you so much. Gosh, I just feel very lucky to be in this position. But this is a garment that I think I could get a ton of wear out of. And I think, strikes a really nice balance as far as in the mindful versus mindless knitting. I think it's somewhere in the middle because the texture is not the most overwhelming, probably, charted all of this. It's ribbing. Different types of ribbing it looks like, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but it's also the kind of thing that once you get started in each section of this, you have a few inches of doing that same thing. And so it's mindful for just the rows where you're really changing, and then you could settle into it. I really love the very like casual V-neck on this one. I have a few V-necks, including this one, that for me drop a little bit too low to wear for like every day. And so to have one that sits a little bit higher, I think would be really nice. And it's not something that I have in my wardrobe. I also think that this is one that could be dressed up with a pair of ballet flats or with heels, with boots, but then also could be very casual with a pair of like clogs, Birkenstock style shoes. Honestly, even with the little Ugg hooves that I like to wear. And I just think that this is a very, very timeless piece that would fit into my wardrobe for years and years and years to come. Also, the way that it is a more A-line shape definitely would be nice to fluctuate with sizing over the years. And I think that that is just something really nice to have in my wardrobe. I don't know, as I'm flipping through the photos now, I can't decide which length I like more. I really do love both options. So this is one I'd probably have to go measure a few more blousey tops that I own and see where their positive ease kind of lies and use that to inform my decision. Now, I am a primarily garment knitter, and so it shouldn't surprise you that that is the majority of my plans. However, I did look at this list and think that's a like very ambitious, big list of cable knits and sweaters and just lots of knitting. And so I thought it would be nice to throw in something here that would give me a little more kind of immediate satisfaction. And so what I decided to add to my fall knitting plans is the Cozy Cocoa Hood by Veronica Lindbergh. Now, I purchased this pattern while we had the 50% off Nora Knits coupon code that Veronica Lindbergh did provide us with earlier this year. And I purchased this one particularly because it has the honeycomb cables on it that I fell in love with knitting last year during my Christmas dress knitting. Now, I don't know for sure that it's the exact same construction, but I'm hoping that it's similar at least. And if not, I really just like the look of this. And I feel like it's something that could be done in a week or so. And in such a way that it would just give me that, like I said, that immediate instant gratification and break up all of the sweaters. Now, I've never knit anything like this before. I've actually never even owned anything like this before. However, last year I had noticed that my typical winter coat, I wear a like wool style double-breasted coat that doesn't have a hood or anything. And I just find myself reaching for that over a proper winter coat. And so I would like for an option of wearing a hood with it for those really chilly days. So I loved the idea of having this as an option. And it just so happens that I have some yarn in my stash that was gifted to me from my friend Shayla over at Black Pearl Magic. She had this yarn in her stash and thought that it looked like something I would love. And she was very, very accurate. This is Cake Wool Company. And the color of this yarn, it is called Waking Dream. This is their superwash merino and their silk mohair. And it's just this most gorgeous neon, vibrant peachy color, which just so happens to actually go with my coat, believe it or not. And I actually, once upon a time, had a very short haircut where my hair was this exact color. And so I know I love having this color up by my face. And I think it would be a fun little pop for the cooler seasons. So I think that this would be a really fun accessory to have. I do really love the bow that's on the front of this hood. And depending on yarn quantities and stuff, I really haven't looked at it too far yet. But if I can make my bow even more dramatic and cozy and maybe even more scarf-like, I might go for that instead of just the double knit bow that Veronica Lindbergh has in the original pattern here. Regardless, I'm just excited to have this kind of there for me when I'm looking for something that's going to scratch that itch of having a finished object, sooner than later on my list. And if I don't get to it for the fall, it's definitely going to get pushed to the winter because I also just need something like this in my wardrobe in my life. Plus, to have a little color to break up a lot of the brown, a lot of the neutral, a lot of the gloom of the, chillier seasons. I just think it's a good idea to have this there. And with that, I think that those are all of my fall knitting plans. I don't know if that seemed overwhelming to anyone else, but I do think that I might be a little overambitious here, but I also know I say that every season. And realistically, whatever gets done, and whatever doesn't. And it's not the end of the world. But definitely those higher priority things, I'm most eager to get them done. So I think at this point, what I have to look at is just, again, those timelines. If I want to have certain things done by a certain time, when do I have to cast them on by? And the reality is, I think that a raglan sweater for me, so that test knit, it can get done in a few weeks' time. So even if I start that and kind of don't work on it as much, I don't have an issue with the mid-November deadline. The Poets cardigan, I know I should probably cast on ASAP. In fact, if nothing else, I should definitely gauge swatch for that even before my Beatrix cardigan is done, if I can think about it. And really, I need to just read over what that's all going to entail, because I kind of haven't yet. So wish me luck on that one. And then for my holiday dress, I know that that's going to be a lot of knitting, but because the cable is a very simple cable and all of the cables are twisting at the same time, it's not a staggered pattern or anything, I actually think it's going to turn fairly mindless once I get into it. So that's really the only one that I have to seriously consider when I have to start knitting it in order to get it done by November 27th. If I'm really, really honest with myself, I like to think that I could actually get that done with a month of knitting. So if at the very least it gets started by October 27th, I think I could manage that. I might eat those words later, but that's what I'm thinking. Anyway, like I said, all of the deadlines are pretty arbitrary except for the test knit. And as long as I'm enjoying what I'm knitting, that's kind of all I care about for this fall season. I think that that's everything I have for you today. I'd love to know if there's anything that I talked about that has, peaked or sparked, parked. If there's anything that I talked about that's kind of piqued your interest, I'd love to know. But I also really want to know, what is the number one thing that you are excited to knit now that we are in true knitter season? Happy fall. I'd love to know what you have on at the top of your fall knitting queue. And I think that that is everything that I have to share with you today. So if you liked this video, I would definitely appreciate it if you would go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you aren't already, I would so appreciate it if you would subscribe, come hang out with us more often. If you ring the bell, you'll be notified anytime I post a new video. However, I post regular podcasts every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. And as the cooler season comes along, my schedule for work kind of chills out a little bit too. So I'm hoping to sprinkle in a few more of these midweek videos to just keep up the fun knitting vibes throughout the next couple of seasons. And I think with all of that, that's all I've got for you today. All right, you guys. Big ol' thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, bye.